Hey Vault Dwellers, Wastelanders, and fellow suitcase addicts. It's Tupper the Fallout Guy, and today we are diving head first into the madness that is the Burning Springs Abraxodyne Intel hunt. Now listen, if you've ever wanted to watch a grown man slowly question his life choices while chasing glowing red briefcases across mutated Ohio, congratulations, you're home. This wasn't just a guide, this was a test of faith, a spiritual endurance trial, a 2-hour loop of, did I already grab this one? And Max, my Australian cattle dog and official wasteland companion, insisted I describe it as a full-blown post-apocalyptic world of pain. He's not wrong, I ran this route more times than I'd like to admit. Creek beds, barn lofts, burned-out cars, skeletons with suspicious life decisions, random pipes, mountainsides. Places Bethesda absolutely did not expect us to check, but I do this because I love Fallout, and I love helping you guys. So if this video saves you time, sanity, or existential dread, hit that like button, subscribe, do it for me, do it for Max, he worked very hard supervising. Alright, the tutorial's kicking off right now. I'm not going to guide you step by step through each briefcase, the footage will show you exactly where they are. What I'm going to do is talk over it and break down the lore and backstory behind the Abraxo briefcases in Burning Springs, so you understand why they're here and what it all means in the bigger Fallout universe. But first, let's talk about what we're actually hunting. With the Burning Springs update in Fallout 76, Bethesda introduced a collectible called Abraxodyne Intel. You might hear people call them Abraxo briefcases, Intel cases, or tiny red beeping nightmares, but the official in-game name is Abraxodyne Intel. These are small red briefcases scattered throughout the Burning Springs region in Ohio. They emit a faint red glow, produce a subtle but persistent beeping sound when you are nearby, and are placed in a wide variety of interior and exterior locations across the map. They are not random junk items, and they are not just background props. They are intentionally placed collectibles tied directly to the Dirty Laundry questline and the broader lore surrounding Abraxodyne chemical. When you approach one, the beeping grows clearer, helping you pinpoint its location, especially in cluttered interiors or multi-level buildings. Once you understand the sound cue, it becomes the primary way you track them. Burning Springs is dense, vertical, and filled with offices, industrial structures, and hidden corners, which means these cases can be placed on shelves, behind desks, inside locked rooms, or tucked into spots that reward careful exploration. Collecting them is not just about completionism. Each piece of Abraxodyne Intel contributes to uncovering internal company communications, executive discussions, and evidence of corporate misconduct prior to the Great War. As you gather more of them, you advance the Dirty Laundry investigation, which slowly reveals what Abraxodyne chemical was dealing with in the days leading up to October 23, 2077. The intel points to rising concerns over contamination, chemical instability, regulatory oversight, and the company's attempts to manage its public image rather than immediately correcting the underlying problems. The fact that these briefcases are hidden instead of formally archived strongly suggests urgency. Either executives were trying to conceal damaging information, employees were trying to preserve evidence outside official channels, or both. Their scattered placement across Burning Springs reinforces the idea that something was escalating quickly before the bombs fell. Meetings were ongoing, reports were incomplete, oversight had begun, and then the Great War interrupted everything. Mechanically, these are collectibles. Narratively, they are fragments of a corporate crisis frozen in time. Abraxodyne Chemical presented itself as a producer of industrial cleaners, solvents, and decontamination agents, promoting an image of efficiency and reliability. Internally, however, the intel suggests tension over chemical safety and environmental impact. Rather than halting operations immediately, leadership appears to have focused on limiting liability and controlling information flow. That is what makes tracking down these briefcases meaningful. You are not just checking off objectives, you are reconstructing a pre-war investigation that never reached accountability because nuclear war erased the consequences. So when you hear that faint red beeping echoing through Burning Springs, understand that you are chasing more than a collectible. You are uncovering pieces of a buried corporate scandal, one briefcase at a time. In Fallout 76, specifically the Ohio content tied to the Burning Springs region. This is not set in Appalachia, and that distinction matters because it shows that Abraxodyne Chemical was operating beyond West Virginia and had expanded into Ohio before the Great War. That expansion changes how we interpret the scale of what they were doing. Abraxodyne was not a small regional chemical company. They were growing, scaling, and distributing products across state lines, and Ohio appears to have been a major operational and administrative hub. Publicly, Abraxodyne presented itself as a chemical solutions corporation focused on industrial cleaners, solvents, decontamination agents, and commercial compounds. Their branding emphasized cleanliness and efficiency, positioning themselves as a necessary backbone of American industry. On paper, they do not look like villains in the same way as Vault-Tec or West-Tec. They were not running vault experiments or developing forced mutation viruses. They were manufacturing chemicals. That normalcy is what makes their story important. The Intel briefcases scattered throughout Burning Springs contain internal communications, executive discussions, scientific batch reports, and holotapes that reveal tension inside the company shortly before October 23, 2077. The fact that these cases are hidden instead of properly archived suggests urgency. Someone did not want these documents processed through official channels. Either executives were concealing evidence or employees were preserving proof for future exposure, or both. As you begin collecting these Intel cases, the dirty laundry quest unfolds and gradually unlocks holotapes. The name itself implies exposing secrets that were meant to remain buried. The first holotape indicates that federal oversight had begun monitoring contamination levels tied to Abraxodyne operations. Executives reference acceptable margins and compliance thresholds, which tells us the company was operating within technical legal boundaries while possibly ignoring real safety concerns. When one voice raises groundwater data, another responds that it should not be discussed on record. That line is critical. It implies knowledge of a problem and deliberate avoidance of documentation. The second holotape references instability in a specific chemical batch. A scientist recommends halting distribution pending toxicity reassessment. That recommendation is denied. This establishes a clear hierarchy where scientific caution is overridden by executive authority. It also suggests that distribution had already begun, meaning the compound was not experimental in a lab, but moving into public or industrial circulation. In Ohio, where production appears to be scaled up, that has larger implications than a small isolated test. The third holotape reveals discussion about managing public perception. Executives discuss attributing environmental illness or to existing industrial factors rather than their own products. This is significant because Ohio in the Fallout universe, much like real-world industrial Ohio, would already have environmental stress from manufacturing and waste. Abraxodyne could hide within that background noise. If contamination was detected, they could blame mining runoff, aging infrastructure, or unrelated chemical sources. That strategy mirrors broader pre-war corporate behavior across the Fallout universe. The fourth holotape suggests internal fractures. Security is mentioned in connection to employee communication. That implies whistleblowers or leaks. Companies do not escalate to security involvement over routine compliance discussions. This suggests that some employees were uncomfortable enough to speak out or potentially attempt to expose internal data. The presence of scattered Intel cases strengthens that interpretation. Someone preserved these files rather than destroy them. Environmental storytelling in Burning Springs supports the idea that Ohio was a significant operational center. The industrial layout includes processing areas separated from administrative buildings, runoff channels, storage tanks, and infrastructure that indicates long-term chemical production rather than temporary research. After the bombs fell, these facilities would have been exposed to nuclear fallout, potentially interacting with unstable compounds stored on site. Unlike West-Tec, where experimentation was intentional and weaponized, Abraxodyne's damage appears to stem from negligence and expansion without proper containment. That difference is thematically important. Abraxodyne represents systemic industrial carelessness rather than secret military science. When comparing them to other corporations in the franchise, their role becomes clearer. Vault-Tec engineered psychological and social experiments inside vaults. West-Tec created FEV and actively pursued forced mutation. Abraxodyne, by contrast, represents environmental corruption and regulatory manipulation. They did not need to create monsters directly. They only needed to ignore warning signs, suppress internal objections, and prioritize contracts over safety. The timing of the documents suggests that these issues were escalating right before the Great War. Reports were still being discussed. Oversight was active. Internal disagreements had not been resolved. The bombs did not expose Abraxodyne. Like West-Tec, where experimentation was intentional and weaponized, Abraxodyne's damage appears to stem from negligence and expansion without proper containment. That difference is thematically important. Abraxodyne represents systemic industrial carelessness rather than secret military science. When comparing them to other corporations in the franchise, their role becomes clearer. Vault-Tec engineered psychological and social experiments inside vaults. West-Tec created FEV and actively pursued forced mutation. Abraxodyne, by contrast, represents environmental corruption and regulatory manipulation. They did not need to create monsters directly. They only needed to ignore warning signs, suppress internal objections, and prioritize contracts over safety. The timing of the documents suggests that these issues were escalating right before the Great War. Reports were still being discussed. Oversight was active. Internal disagreements had not been resolved. The bombs did not expose Abraxodyne. They interrupted exposure. Whatever legal or public consequences might have occurred were erased in nuclear fire. The briefcases are essentially frozen evidence from a scandal that never reached accountability. The broader implication for Fallout lore is that societal collapse was already underway before October 23rd. Nuclear war did not create corruption. It accelerated and preserved it. Ohio's inclusion in the storyline reinforces the idea that corporate expansion carried risks across state lines. Appalachia was not unique in suffering from industrial exploitation. The same patterns extended outward. Abraxodyne's operations in Ohio show how pre-war corporations scaled production despite mounting evidence of harm. When you collect those briefcases, you are reconstructing a corporate crisis halted by global annihilation. There is no confirmation that Abraxodyne created superweapons or engineered mutation viruses, and that absence of grand villainy makes their story more grounded. They reflect realistic industrial malpractice, suppressing data, manipulating reports, managing media narratives, and silencing dissent. The wasteland we explored 2 centuries later still bears environmental scars, and while nuclear devastation is the dominant factor, Fallout consistently reminds us that the world was already decaying ethically and environmentally. Abraxodyne fits squarely into that pattern. Their Ohio operations demonstrate that the Great War froze a moment in time when corporations were expanding faster than they could responsibly manage their impact. The Dirty Laundry quest is less about uncovering a secret apocalypse device and more about piecing together how normal business practices, when unchecked, contributed to a broken world. The briefcases are not just collectibles, they are fragments of an unfinished investigation. The bombs ended the hearings, erased the lawsuits, and silenced the executives, but the documents survived. And through them we see that pre-war America in Fallout was collapsing long before the missiles launched. In Burning Springs, Athens, tucked inside Abraxodyne's legal office, there's a man sitting behind a desk. His name is Bodhi, and on the surface, he seems calm, professional, almost detached. You bring him briefcases, classified Abraxodyne Intel. He thanks you, pays you, hands you holotapes. Simple job, right? But nothing in Appalachia is ever simple. Who is Bodhi? Before the bombs, Bodhi wasn't military, he wasn't Enclave, he wasn't Brotherhood, he was corporate, a mid-level legal compliance officer for Abraxodyne Chemical. And if you know anything about pre-war corporations in Fallout, you know compliance rarely meant morality, it meant containment. His job? Bury things. Legal problems, safety violations, unethical testing programs, hazardous chemical leaks. If something threatened the company's image, it crossed Bodhi's desk, and if it could be sealed in paperwork, it disappeared. Abraxodyne's dirty secret. Abraxodyne wasn't just manufacturing cleaning agents. They were developing volatile chemical compounds, experimental agents, unstable mixtures, compounds that required special containment protocols. And somewhere along the way, someone inside the company started asking questions that someone was his daughter. She didn't work in legal, she worked closer to the science. Research, testing, internal reporting. She saw what was being moved through the building, shipments labeled incorrectly, files marked restricted, compounds with redacted hazard classifications. She started keeping copies, backups, evidence, not to destroy the company, but to expose the risk because, unlike her father, she believed the public deserved to know. The briefcases you recover, they weren't random storage, they were safeguards, each one containing fragments of internal documents, compliance failures, shipment logs, suppressed incident reports, her insurance policy. If she was silenced, the truth would survive in pieces, scattered, hidden, waiting. The conflict. Here's where the story splits. Bodhi believed in systems. He believed corporations, flawed as they were, maintained order. If the public found out about unstable chemical agents weeks before nuclear war, panic, riots, economic collapse, he told her to stop digging. She refused, because what she found wasn't minor misconduct, it was intentional negligence. Abraxodyne knew the compounds were unstable. They kept producing them anyway. Then the bombs fell October 23rd, sirens, flash, ash, the world ended, and in the chaos, the corporate machine stopped pretending. No more legal departments, no more internal hearings, just survival. Bodhi retreated to the legal office, barricaded himself in, not from mutants, not from Scorched, but from something else. When you deliver the briefcases to Bodhi, watch him closely. He doesn't act surprised. He doesn't ask how you found them. He doesn't panic about what's inside. He already knows. He's not collecting evidence to expose the truth. He's consolidating it, erasing loose ends. Even after the world ended, he's still doing his job. Containment, control, silence. And that raises a question. If he's just a scared old compliance officer, why is he so calm? Why does he feel prepared? Why does he pay so well for documents no one else is looking for? Because there's one more layer to this story, and it doesn't sit in a filing cabinet. Bodhi wasn't just burying documents, he was connected to the mechanism that buried people. Pre-war corporations didn't rely only on lawyers. They relied on contractors, fixers, private operatives, the kind of men who made problems disappear quietly. His daughter didn't just uncover negligence, she uncovered off-the-books operations, illegal chemical transfers routed through shell companies, contracts signed under alternate identities. One name kept appearing in payment trails, a consultant, a security risk mitigation specialist, the man who, after the bombs fell, was still active, still moving, still collecting. And if you trace the timeline, her disappearance wasn't random. It wasn't wartime chaos. It was precision. Bodhi wasn't hiding because he was afraid of raiders. He was hiding because he knew what had been set in motion. He helped bury corporate secrets for decades, and when his daughter refused to let one stay buried, the system he protected responded the only way it knew how: erase the liability. Now here's the tragedy. Bodhi may never have ordered it, but he built the machine that made it possible. So when you bring him those briefcases, you're not helping a grieving father, you're helping the last compliance officer finish the cleanup, even after the apocalypse. So next time you walk through Burning Springs, and you see that quiet man behind the desk, ask yourself, is he a victim of the system or its final employee? Because in Appalachia, the bombs didn't end corporate America, they just removed the oversight. And Bodhi, he's proof that some jobs never truly end. Before Bodhi became the quiet man behind a desk, before the briefcases, before the silence, there was Ohio. Abraxodyne Chemical wasn't just a regional company operating out of one facility, it was expanding. Pre-war America rewarded production, not caution, and Ohio was industry country. Rail lines, water access, manufacturing corridors, perfect for chemical transport. Officially, Abraxodyne's Ohio branch produced industrial-strength cleaning solvents, heavy-duty compounds designed for mining equipment, steel processing plants, and infrastructure maintenance. But internally, they were pushing boundaries. Higher volatility, faster breakdown times, more aggressive reaction properties. They were engineering chemicals that worked better, but degraded unpredictably. And when unstable compounds degrade, they don't vanish, they spread. Environmental impact. Small anomalies started appearing in Ohio waterways: fish die-offs, sediment discoloration, strange mineral buildup along runoff channels, localized plant decay near drainage zones. Nothing catastrophic, nothing dramatic enough to cause panic, just subtle shifts, the kind that get labeled under review, within acceptable variance, pending further study. And every time those phrases appeared in documentation, the file moved upstairs. To legal, to compliance, to Bodhi. Bodhi's role. Bodhi's job wasn't to create chemicals, it wasn't to test them, it was to make sure the company couldn't be sued for them. He specialized in mitigation language, reclassification phrasing, risk containment strategy. If an environmental report suggested contamination, it became trace industrial byproduct. If a safety memo mentioned exposure hazard, it became controlled environmental variable. He wasn't a villain, he was efficient. He believed he was protecting jobs, protecting economic stability, protecting order. And that belief is important because his daughter didn't share it. The daughter, her discovery. She worked closer to lab operations, close enough to see the raw data before legal revisions, close enough to see chemical breakdown projections before they were softened. And one day, She noticed a pattern. Ohio environmental complaints were increasing, but internal hazard projections showed identical contamination markers, the same compound signatures, the same decay rates, the same runoff trajectory models. It wasn't coincidence, it was leakage. She started pulling shipment manifests, cross-referencing disposal routes, comparing raw lab notes with finalized compliance summaries, and she saw it. Abraxodyne wasn't accidentally harming the environment. They were knowingly pushing unstable compounds into circulation because the profit margins were too good to slow down. The briefcases. That's when she started building her insurance policy. She didn't trust digital storage. Too easy to wipe. So she made physical copies, compliance drafts before revisions, environmental models, shipment reroutes, internal memos discussing acceptable loss thresholds. She divided them, sealed them, placed them in secured briefcases, not all in one place, not easy to destroy at once. If something happened to her, the truth wouldn't disappear with a server reset. Father versus daughter. When Bodhi found out she was copying files, he panicked. Not because he hated her, because he understood how corporations protect themselves. He knew how fast internal investigations could become external accidents. He told her to stop. She told him people deserved to know. He believed exposure would cause panic. She believed silence was the real danger. And that's when their relationship fractured. Not violently, quietly. Two different definitions of responsibility, two different ideas of protection. Then the bombs fell October 23rd. The world ended, corporate oversight collapsed, regulatory boards vanished overnight, and suddenly all those suppressed environmental risks didn't matter anymore, because nuclear fire rewrote the priority list. But here's the thing, the briefcases were still out there, and Bodhi survived. He returned to the legal office, not because he loved the company, because it was familiar, structured, predictable, and he started looking for the cases, collecting them, paying well for their return, calm, professional, detached, still doing his job, even when the company no longer existed. But here's the question you should be asking. If the world ended, why does he still care? Why does he want every copy accounted for? Who is he protecting now? Because environmental damage doesn't matter in a nuclear wasteland. So what was in those files that still scares him? That's where the final layer of this story begins. And that layer isn't about pollution. It's about liability.
Eyes open! to show my strength. We have company! They're gone now, coward. Do I? We have company.
The Rust King demands strength.
To hit Abraxodyne again. That's always good fun.
Do I hear some?
To ashes. And you thought you could...
Friends, lend me your ears.
hear some prey?
Shit.
Turn him into a red man.
Here's some bread.
hurts.
Green. God.
Scorpion venom can dissolve sheet metal. Terrifying. And down below? Ugh, stinks down there.
Blasted heat.
Been seeing more ghouls around recently. What kind of stuff?
I need to put together another food package for
I
Mac.
still don't entirely
Sounds
trust
sweet to me.
Spoons. But damn if she doesn't stock some good
Lots of new faces in town.
Might be rough around the edges here, but all are welcome. Wish I knew where Mac gets all his stock from. Gotta be crazy running caravans through this wasteland.
Caps never last as long as you need them.
Might not be great in this dump, but what's out there is worse.
Hard to imagine that lake used to be a whole river.
You need a fix to get you through another day? Clark is what you need.
Hot one today, huh?
Checked out the Last Resort lately? New bounties there all the time.
Might head over to the Last Resort. Could be some open bounties.
No good bounty hunters loitering around not buying anything.
Damn this place. Get out. Journey where it's likely to kill me.
Wish I could see what's over the river, but it's way too dangerous to leave town.
Who said profit had to just be caps?
Take on a bounty or two.
This place would be a ghost town without me.
Welcome. Unless you're gonna cause trouble. In which case, get lost.
Gotta hand it to Splint. She knows her guns.
Ran into a deathclaw yet? I was lucky to get away. That's it! Putting a price on that bastard's head the first chance I get. Might head over to the last resort. Could be some open bounties.
Don't waste my time.
Where did you put my smokes?
Gotta see Clark.
You know where to find me. But if anyone else comes looking, don't help them. Keep up the intro.
Hard to imagine that lake used to be a whole river.
This place is a hellhole.
Might not be great in this dump. What's out there is worse.
These are tough times. I hope we can hold out here.
Gotta hand it to Splint. She knows her guns.
Might makes right. He can kiss my ass.
These are tough times. I hope we can hold out here.
Gotta hand it to Splint. She knows her guns.
Might makes right. He can kiss my ass.
You're back. How goes your search? Good. Give it here. Oh, God. It is as I feared. There's a note in here, too. Unbelievable. Those lowlives dared to send a killer after my daughter. What kind of animals are they? This note detailed instructions for a hitman to collect equipment from a nearby apartment and dispose of the whistleblower target. So this is how they chose to deal with my beloved daughter. My little girl. God, even after all these years, I feel my blood boiling and my heart filling with rage. With my head in this state, I fear what I might do. Please, friend, you have a clearer mind. Go in my place. Find out what happened. For her sake.
Hi, Janice. Come in. Take a seat. How is everything going? Is the Abraxodyne initiative making good progress?
It's going swell, thanks. But I actually had something else I wanted to talk to you about.
Oh. Well, I'm always happy to talk things through. What's on your mind?
You remember that problem the board had with the flow of information? From what I hear, they're getting mighty close to solving it.
Huh. Well, I'm glad to hear that things are...
And if I was someone involved in that situation whatsoever, I would sure start thinking about moving on. Sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, I've got to skedaddle now. It was really nice chatting with you again, Amrita. Take care, won't you?
Oh, God.
Well, looky here. A fellow rotten scab wasting away in this cesspit town. Listen, buddy, I don't know who you are or what you want, but you ain't gonna find it here. So how about you get the hell out of my apartment? What, am I supposed to be scared now? You're gonna have to try harder than that, bozo. Get lost, before I teach you some manners. Yeah, I think I do know something about that. Way back when, before the bombs, and before I turned into sentient roadkill, I was actually a very important man. I had a seat on the board of Abraxodyne Chemical. You know, the detergent company. Boy, we were living it up, making money hand over fist. But then our head of marketing, Amrita, started sticking her nose where she shouldn't, it became a problem. I was in charge of making sure company business stayed private. So when Amrita wouldn't stop prying, I had her taken care of. What's it to you, though? Why do you care? That's admirable of you and all, but I'm not sure what you want me to do about it. What do you want from me? To tell you that I'm sorry? That I regret it? Well, I don't. Yeah, shady shit went on, but Amrita wasn't the only one affected by it. The board had an iron grip on its members, and we all had to toe the line. If I didn't take care of Amrita, I'd have been next. Then who would have been there to take care of my wife and daughter? I'll never apologize for looking after my family, even if some people got hurt along the way. That? We never really intended for it to be used. We built it as a deterrent to help our troops is all. God knows. She ran off with that scumbag Carrie and took my baby girl with her. Some thanks for working 16 hours a day for them, huh? Hope they're happy, if they ain't already worm food by now. A businessman at heart, huh? I respect that. I can offer you caps, and plenty of them. I lost everything when the bombs dropped, just like everyone else. I guess that really settled the score for all of us, huh? Thanks for your little visit, kid. But I need to get packing. This place clearly ain't safe for me anymore.
You're back. How did it go? Did you find anything? That bastard Cooney. There could be no punishment too great for him. What did you do with him? How could you let him slip away like that? After I've been searching for all these years. I suppose killing him was never going to bring my Amrita back. Besides, she wouldn't have wanted me to stoop to that level. Either way, there's no reason for me to stay in this accursed jompery anymore. I shall take my leave. Before I go, let me show you how to decrypt the cases, just in case you find any more in your travels. Here are some caps for your trouble too. I won't be needing them anymore. Farewell, friend.